My name's Frost, and welcome to another Chatterfox review. And today I'm going to be reviewing Disney's animated spin on the classic Oliver Twist called Oliver and Company. It was released in 1998 and follows the story of a feisty little kitty named Oliver who winds up meeting some less than perfect friends shortly after being abandoned in the streets of New York City. Now, before I get too far into this, I do want to say that both the music and the art style of this particular animated film are absolutely phenomenal. There is definitely something to be said about the days of hand-drawn animation, and the fact that some of the flair that the older movies had seems to have been lost in some of the more modern films. Also, you guys are going to notice in just a minute that the format for this one has changed a little bit. And the reason for that is because it feels like in the older reviews I did, I was spending far too much time explaining the cast and not enough time explaining the movie. So I'm gonna try something a little new. But we are still gonna talk about the cast first because it seems kind of important to the film. So here we go. I also kind of need to point out that for this one, there's technically 3 sets of characters. So I'm going to be dividing them up by High Town, Low Town, and Antagonist. And we're going to be starting with the Lowtown characters because of the sheer number of people that are in that group. Starting with the main human character of Lowtown, Mr. Fagin, a guy who's down on his luck and does some pretty desperate things to try to survive. And in the Fagin gang, there is the streetwise terrier called Dodger, the quick-talking smart-aleck chihuahua named Tito, the posh British bulldog called Francis, who by the way really doesn't like being called Frankie, the gentle and lovably derpy Great Dane, Einstein, though I think his name is actually Ricky. I think they just call him Einstein to be mean. The streetwise Saluki beauty named Rita, and of course Oliver, the feisty little feline. Now, moving on to the Hightown group, we have a little human girl named Jenny, who is the lovable but slightly lonely daughter of a rich capitalist, Winston, her kindly but ever so slightly quirky butler, and her family's annoyingly prissy, pampered little prized poodle, Georgette. Last but not least, we have the antagonists, starting with the human Mr. Sykes, who is a Midtown Mafia-style loan shark, and his deadly Doberman douche canoe duo, Roscoe and DeSoto. And while this terrifying trio are the only antagonists in the movie, they are a perfect example of just how fluffed up people can really be. Okay. Now that we're done talking about the cast, I'm gonna move into talking about the story. And while I'm gonna try not to go into too much detail, there's probably gonna be a couple spoilers, so yeah, that's kind of a thing. Anyways, the opening sequence is pretty much designed to kick you right in the feels with a steel-toed boot. From the choice of music to some beautiful panorama shots of New York City, and even a sequence in which Oliver and his unnamed siblings are being sold to loving homes. A sequence that actually gets very dark very quickly and perfectly showcases the dangers of what life on the streets can be like. Even when that sequence is over and Dodger is first introduced, it seems like Oliver is kind of out of luck and might have to learn the hard way never to trust anyone. But with a little bit of luck and a lot of tenacity, he actually winds up keeping up with the streetwise pooch and winds up getting introduced to the rest of the Fagin gang in a pretty comical way. And even though they have a little bit of mean-spirited fun trying to scare the kitten, the rest of the group actually end up accepting Oliver as one of their own pretty quickly. After this, the movie sets up what is essentially one of the main plot lines by introducing Mr. Fagin as well as Mr. Sykes in pretty rapid succession and making it very obvious what kind of people both of them are and who is in debt to who. The Doberman douche canoes are actually introduced here alongside their diabolical master, and it pretty quickly becomes apparent that one of them is an obvious womanizer and the other one is a sadist who actually tries to torment Oliver and winds up getting his nose clawed up for his efforts. It also lets you see the kind of people that Dodger and his friends are by showing you that even though they just met Oliver, they're willing to try to protect him from a group of trained and dangerous thugs. Now, while all of that's happening with the animals, Fagin is talking to Mr. Sykes and he makes it very clear that if Fagin doesn't pay up within 3 days, he's gonna kill him. Dodger and his crew try to cheer up Mr. Fagin, and the very next day hijinks ensue. This is actually when you get to see what kind of things Fagin has been doing to try to survive, and it's pretty desperate. This is also where Jenny and Winston get introduced when the canine crew try to do this weird little heist from their limousine and steal the car's radio. Now, while the method they use is kind of clever, it also sort of leads to a lot of problems. They fail to get the radio, and Oliver, who was sort of just along for the ride, winds up getting caught. Thankfully, it's Jenny who catches him, and she decides to try to keep him. The next sequence sort of introduces Georgette, and I have to say, the song she sings for her introduction scene is, well, I'll be honest. It paints her as a stuck-up snub who thinks way too highly of herself and who can be downright nasty to people that she sees as beneath her. The lyrics of the song literally have her claiming to be perfect, and it even has her stating that she pities other dogs because they aren't her. It actually does a really good job at showing what a life of luxury can do to somebody if they're never taught to be humble. Now, this is where things take a little bit of a dark turn, but in a funny way, because while Oliver finds himself in the lap of luxury, his friends all think he's actually in danger. So when Dodger and his crew go to rescue their feline friend, they actually wind up catnapping him with the help of the self-centered Georgette, who just really doesn't want the cat in her home. And when they get Oliver back to the makeshift home that they've all been staying in, Oliver tries to explain what had actually happened and that he wanted to go back. And instead of being happy for his friend, Dodger takes it as a sort of personal insult and actually gets pretty nasty to the poor kitten. After all, hurt feelings can make people say things that they really don't mean. One thing leads to another. Fagin finds out where Oliver's been for the last couple hours, and in a sort of eat the rich mentality, he hatches this harebrained scheme to ransom the kitten back to its rich owner. After all, he needs the money and they have lots of it, so what's the harm, right? So after he sets his harebrained scheme in motion, Fagin actually finds out that the person that comes for Oliver is actually Jenny. Now, while he might be shady, Fagin isn't a monster, and when he realizes the error of his ways, he tries to do the right thing fairly quickly. But Mr. Sykes has other ideas, and instead he kidnaps Jenny to try to ransom her back to her rich family. After that, Dodger, Oliver, and the rest of their crew go and try to rescue Jenny despite the danger to their own lives. Even Mr. Fagin gets involved and tries to help out, which leads to a chase scene that sort of shows the age of the film pretty well. And while the scene does end in a sort of happy way, Mr. Sykes, as well as Roscoe and DeSoto, actually end up dying in it in fairly gruesome ways. And while there's no actual blood visible, it is, to say the least, very jarring to see the death of 3 characters in a Disney film. Now, as for my conclusion on Oliver and Company, it's a breathtaking movie and a wonderful example of how people aren't always what they seem to be. It goes out of its way to depict how sometimes people will do terrible things out of desperation or because they have misguided goals or simply because they feel like they've been hurt by somebody else. And while I can't say that Fagin or his group of lovable scoundrels are the nicest people, they are a perfect representation of what a life of hardship can do to even the kindest individuals. Likewise, Georgette and even Winston are a good example of how even the most stuck-up and self-centered people can be kind if given the chance. After all, everyone has their flaws, and even though some people might seem perfect on the outside, chances are they can be just as terrible as anyone else at times. Overall, I give this one a 9 out of 10 paws. I love the story, and I would absolutely encourage everyone to go see it if they haven't already, but due to one particular issue, I can't give it a perfect review. You see, in a lot of scenes, there are images of animals either eating or being fed chocolate, and this is absolutely not okay to do. Seriously, never feed your pets chocolate. It's poisonous to most animals and will make them sick or could even kill them if they eat too much of it. Anyways, that's it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the review, and if you want to let me know what you think of this one, leave a comment down below. I love reading your guys' comments. Anyways, until next time, everybody. Bye!
Oh yeah, I want to show our patrons some love too because they're awesome. Their contributions help us to afford all the neat stuff we use to record. So thank you. And if you want to become a patron too, you can click the link down in the description. You'd really be helping the channel out, and you'd get a couple nifty goodies too. Anyways, if you made it this far in the video, then yay, you're amazing. By the way, subscribe. Please don't make a foxy beg.